as it's nice to have our vice chair back at the dais with us. It's awesome. We've had you in the room a couple times, but not back to the dais. So why don't we begin with a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance? And if I could ask you, Member Vice Chair, if you would lead us. Thank you.
Before we begin our moment of silence, I know 9/11 has just passed, so please keep all those that were affected and lost by 9/11 in your thoughts. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Orange County School Board's Rule Development Workshop. Today is the 15th of September. This year is just flying by on us, and that's not altogether a bad thing. For once, I'm kind of looking forward to the year being over, and I'm hoping that 2021 is a fresh new start for us without COVID, or at least with improved conditions. So we are here tonight for a rule development workshop that's been scheduled for the purpose of discussing 4 different rezonings. The first one is 43E SE2, affecting Eagle Creek and Laureate Park. The second is 80H SW4, affecting Dr. Phillips and Freedom. The third is 113 HW4, affecting Windermere and West Orange. And the fourth one is 65MW4, affecting Bridgewater. Board members are in attendance telephonically or in person, so I will do a quick roll call just to confirm that we have everyone on the line. So let's begin with Member Gallo.
Present, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Member Lopez.
Present, Madam Chair.
Member Cobert.
Good afternoon, Chair.
Vice Chair Gould.
Good afternoon.
Dr. Gordon.
Present and accounted for, Madam Chair.
Wonderful. Dr. Custer-Dental.
Present.
Wonderful. And Member Byrd.
Present.
Okay, and we're going to conduct our meetings as we have been doing in the recent past. That means that all board members will use a text to Dr. Williams with a letter Q, and Dr. Williams will write them on the whiteboard in the order that they come, and I will try to rely on that almost exclusively. However, from time to time, if a board member decides to jump in with a motion, whether it's by phone or by voice, I will try to honor that and try to honor the seconds in the order they come. The seconds are a little difficult from time to time because a lot of time we get more than 1 second at a time, so everyone please bear with me as I try to make sure I get that as accurate as possible. And I know that it has been difficult for us conducting these meetings virtually. It's especially difficult for board members that are calling in. So I will do my best to make sure that I acknowledge everybody in the order that they call in as fairly as I can. So I ask also for the board's patience with me as we continue to work through these difficult times. I want to assure the public that we have, in spite of the fact that it's less people in the chambers, that we have gone out of our way to make sure that we incorporate public input. We have 3 means for taking public input on all of our meetings. The first is by email. So we, in addition to being able to email board members anytime for any reason, we encourage board members before any of our public meetings where we take public testimony, which would be this meeting and our regular meetings, to please email us. And the way you can do that is if you email us by 5 o'clock the day before the meeting, and the staff will compile all those emails and make sure board members have all of them. And they are emailed to, I do not see this, can somebody help me out, the email address that they are to email to? Ms. Enval.
The email address is public comments, all one word, so there's 2 C's in the middle, at ocps.net.
Okay, and that's public comments with singular, plural, with an S?
Singular, public comment.
Public comment at ocps.net.
Yes.
Thank you. Also, we take comments telephonically. For those members who wish to address the school board during our meetings, but do not feel comfortable coming in, you can call this telephone number, 407-250-6270. The key here is that you need to call between the time of 4:15 and 4:30. You need to have called by that time for this meeting. And then you need to stay on the line while we try to patch you through, and be patient with us as well. We have established a process of calling back people that might be inadvertently dropped off the line, because we know how important it is to take and hear from the public. And the last option always is to come here in person. We welcome anyone who wishes to come. We do require masks, and we do separate everybody by 6 feet, but this has worked very well. So you're welcome to participate old school and come into the meetings. Let me now go and turn this meeting over to Dr. Jenkins, and we'll move on to our workshop.
Thank you, Chair, members of the board. We are at that time of year to look at core rezonings. As mentioned earlier, Dr. McGowan and her staff will walk us through. Well, the red light was on. Let's try it again. Thank you, Chair, members of the board. We are here that time of year to look at rezonings. There are 4 for this afternoon. As the Chair already enumerated for you, we will now give way to Dr. McGowan and her team to walk us through.
Thank you, Dr. Jenkins, Chair and Board. It's nice to see you this evening. Before we start our presentation, let me present the student enrollment staff that's with me this evening. We have to my left Ms. Neal, and behind me is Dr. Westerman, and sitting behind Ms. Neal is Ms. Paropche. So this evening we bring forward the rezoning for 4 new schools: 43E SE2, 80H SW4, 113 HW4, and 65 MW4. All of these schools are scheduled to open in 2021 in August. For rezoning, we follow School Board Policy JC. On the slide, you can see the steps we follow and how we handle our material for rezoning notebook. So tonight we are on Rule Development Workshop. The first 4 steps are us doing our research, talking with different people, and bringing forward options. Both at the Rule Development Workshop and the public hearing, the public is invited to speak and give us their input. To describe the scope of rezonings, we use some terms in-house so that we know what we're looking at. We have something called a technical, a targeted, and a relief school opening. And I think I've skipped a slide, so Ms. Neal, if you'll go through that. So what I wanted to show everybody is how you could get to all the information on the website to find all the information we're presenting tonight and have shown before. If you follow the steps that you see here, you can get to all the information. And our next slide even shows you where within the section like high school you can find the stuff. So now we'll talk rezoning types. We have the technical, which is generally moving property that has no students involved. A targeted is one that's usually a small area and a limited number of students are involved. And then tonight we're doing relief school. It affects a large area and a large number of students. Next slide. In our rezoning process, we have a timeline. The timeline for this rezoning is up on the screen. And again, tonight we're on our Rule Development Workshop, and on October 13th, we will have our public hearing. As you can see, we've held 2 public hearings or 2 community meetings. We had one in March before everything was shut down, and then we restarted the process on September 3rd with our 2nd community meeting. We have a naming convention for all our schools. The one that you see in front of you is 43, and that is a real estate property number for OCPS. The next, the E, is going to stand for the school type, whether in this case it's elementary, it could be middle, high, K-8. The next is the learning community. In this case, it's the Southeast. And 2 is the board member district, and that would be Ms. Lopez for this one. As part of the transfer policy, the board came up with the grandfather transfer to be used within rezoning. For the grandfather transfer, there's 3 different criteria. One would be a student is rezoned by OCPS 2 or more times during a school level at a current address. Then we have where students could be rezoned from an established school to an established school. In that case, the student may remain at the existing school instead of going to the rezoned school. Or if we're opening a relief school and they would be a 5th or an 8th grader at that school, they have the option to remain at the current school. We do not provide transportation under this transfer, and the eligibility requirements is for each student. To find the information on our website to be able to apply for the grandfather transfer, we have that up on the screen for you. Big green button for transfers, and it takes you over. We want to hear from our community. We've provided 3 different ways for folks to respond to send to student enrollment. One is our electronic community survey. For each of the rezonings, they have their own survey link, and folks can go in and provide their thoughts, whether they like or dislike each option that we've shown. For tonight, the information was asked to be provided to us by last Friday. And then we had that information, and anything that came in after that, we have provided that as well for our board. We also accept petitions, and we asked that to come in last Friday as well so folks could see it. And then people can email me. And we take all the information that we get, we provide to our board members the surveys, the petitions, and any emails for their reading of all of it. We also provide for the board a summary sheet so that you can see overall. So for our public, the board sees what you bring in, but when we present our summary numbers, if somebody sent something twice, we delete that. So our numbers represent 1 input per family. We have questions on how do we get our numbers for growth and development. So we have something called a residential development layer. On this layer, our demographer keeps up with any residential communities that are coming in. They're color-coded for us. They're either underway right this minute, or they're platting, which means that we'll see rooftops in the near future, or they're planned for somewhere down the road. The table in the bottom in the black and gray shows us each residential development with the name, and then how many units, whether it's townhomes, single-family homes, apartments. We then have a student generation rate that goes with that, and that helps us determine how many students should come from each residential area, new growth. Again, before I turn this over to Ms. Neal for 43 ESE2, the schools will open in August of 2021. Ms. Neal?
Good evening. I am presenting 43E SE2. I would first like to take this time and orient you through the map. The red lines represent the current or the 2021 elementary school boundary lines. You can see I'm outlining Laureate Park, and I'm now circling 43E, which is north of State Road 417. Presently, Narcoossee Road is the dividing line for Laureate Park and Eagle Creek Elementary. And I want to point out to the south is the Osceola border. The next slide shows the development in the area. Yellow is what has been planned, salmon platted, green anything started and stopped, and pink the development that is underway. Now on to option 1. The shaded areas represent the proposed new school zones. In yellow, 43E, SE2. Directly below in purple represents the proposed zone for Laureate Park. And to the right of Laureate in green is the proposed Eagle Creek Elementary School zone. Let me point out that on each map you will see data squares for each proposed zone, starting with the new 43E SE2, and in parentheses, you will see PPC, and PPC stands for Permanent Program Capacity. And for 43E SE2, the permanent program capacity is 791. Proposed resides is 672, and projected for the 2021 school year is 665 to 705. Laureate Park, the permanent program capacity is 791, and proposed resides is 672, and projected for the 2021 school year is 665 to 705. I'm sorry, let me back up. Laureate Park has a permanent program capacity of 791, proposed resides 698, and projected 860 to 900. Eagle Creek Elementary has a permanent program capacity of 786, proposed resides 660, and projected 680 to 720. The next slide shows the development. We have prepared for you a data table which contains the information from the data bubbles located on the map with additional information. I'll walk you through. The first column is the school's program capacity. So we're going to look at Eagle Creek Elementary with a program capacity of 786, and the school's enrollment from November 15 of 2019, which is 1,021. Below that is the school's current race and ethnicity percentages, with 79% white, 9% black, 12% other, 39% non-Hispanic, and 61% Hispanic. The third column is the number of students currently residing in the zone, and that is 1,043. The fourth column represents the proposed number of students residing in the zone based on this option, which is 660. The race and ethnicity percentages: 77% white, 10% black, 13% other, 47% non-Hispanic, and 53% Hispanic. And projected students for the 2021 school year, 680 to 720. The fifth column is called FARMS, which stands for Free and Reduced Meals, and the percentage of students current and proposed that qualify. For Eagle Creek, 37%, and proposed 30%. The sixth column is the exceptional student education, or students who qualify for exceptional student education, current and proposed. 8% current and 7% proposed. The seventh and final column represents students who are English language learners, current and proposed. 28% current and 24% proposed. I'll give you a moment to review the rest of the table. We have a second option for 43E SE2, and here you will see the proposed zones again with 43E SE2, with no change to Laureate Park Elementary and little change with students being zoned to Eagle Creek down by Fells Lane. I'm circling here. Here again is the development layer over this option. The data table, and again, I'll give you a moment to review. Here is a side-by-side comparison of the map options. A side-by-side comparison of the data table. As of September 15, 2020, we have received input from 36 families in support for option 1 and 0 families opposing, and 0 families supporting option 2 and 36 families opposing. It is the superintendent's staff recommendation for option 1. This concludes my presentation of 43E SE2. Dr. Jenkins.
Members of the board, happy to hear any discussion, answer any questions at this point. As a reminder, Dr. McGowan and team will be looking for consensus from the board on how we move forward in advertising from this point.
Okay, before we open up to board comments, let's see if we have members of the public that are either present or on the phone.
Madam Chair, we have 0 members of the public in person. We do have 2 callers, but
Okay.
not for this particular one. It's for 80HSW4, which is your next one.
Okay, then I will open it to board discussion or motion. And I'm going to give everybody a minute to queue in if anybody wants to comment or discuss this. Okay, Member Lopez, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can I see slide 25 on page 25? Okay. Can I have more feedback on the superintendent recommendation on why the option 1 is better for our community?
Okay, option 1, if, Stacy, if you'll put the map up for a second. The comparison.
You want this side?
Yeah, the side-by-side. So with this rezoning and the locations of the schools, the site for 43 just kind of fell into place with dividing the schools up in an equitable manner. We looked to try to see if it would be good to move a few more students into Eagle Creek, and that's what you see in option 2. Moving them to Eagle Creek, while it makes the numbers better, they do have to, we have another school coming, which is going to be south of Laureate Park and before the Osceola County line. So when that school comes online, then all the students basically in Laureate Park area will be divided up one more time. So by keeping the kids at Laureate Park, then we have a smoother transition as we move to the next school.
Perfect. Thank you for your feedback.
No problem.
Can I make a motion?
Absolutely.
To support option number 1? So based on the support of the community and also the recommendation from the superintendent, I would like to make a motion for option number 1.
All right, we have a motion from Member Lopez. Do we have a second? We have a second from Member Colbert. All right, let's begin a roll call vote with Member Gallo.
Aye.
Thank you. Member Lopez.
Aye.
Member Colbert.
Aye.
Vice Chair Gould.
Aye.
Dr. Gordon.
I'm here. I just needed to ask, I know when you open up just a point of clarification
Of course.
with the board member, with that being in their group, usually they, I just want to make sure, because we have a couple of them to go, that we are only getting consensus, and I don't believe, once that board member speaks, then the board can move to do consensus unless there's some other mitigating forces. So I didn't know if you're gonna do all of them like that, or we just, once that lead board member speaks, and then the meeting, and then those waiting on the line to speak, and then if the board has to decide, I just needed to find out how you're going to do that. Dr. Jenkins, know that normally we just get consensus unless the community, because they've all been to all of the meetings and we have met with staff. And all we're doing today is just moving forward.
Dr. Gordon, you are so right. I apologize. And member,
That's okay.
no, Member Lopez asked me, could she make a motion? I am so sorry. You're absolutely right. We don't need a motion. We need direction.
Right.
Thank you. So if I could ask that a motion maker withdraw the motion? Would you withdraw the motion? Because we're not actually going to take a vote here today. Dr. Gordon is point
So
on.
make the motion to withdraw.
Just withdraw. Just withdraw. We haven't voted.
Okay, yes,
Okay.
I agree. So,
Okay, and the
But
seconder?
Madam,
Okay.
Madam Chair, let me interject. On behalf of those in that community that board member represents, usually we are at those meetings or we meet with the staff, and then that board member can bring, but that will happen at the main board meeting.
Exactly.
And there are discrepancy between the community
Absolutely.
and the board.
No,
And
absolutely. Yeah, thank you, because we don't want the community that might be watching to be confused. So the seconder has withdrawn the
Right. We don't
motion.
want them to think you've agreed on it
Yes.
and move it forward when it will be coming before the board.
Thank you so much. Yes, so as Dr. Gordon was just saying, if anybody is watching, this does not mean that we're not directing the staff to move forward. That's the intent of Member Lopez. And unless any board members has a different opinion or wants to discuss it further, then we have consensus to direct staff to move forward to advertise this. That will come back to us for a final public hearing. And Ms. McGowan, do we have a date for that hearing?
October 13th.
Okay, so October 13th. And the board can't legally take action, as Dr. Gordon pointed out, until we are at that meeting where all members of the public that are interested will one more time have an opportunity to have input, and at that point we'll make a final decision. But the direction is clear from the district board representative and from the rest of the board that we would like to move forward with this being advertised and take that final action then. Dr. Gordon, thank you again for jumping in when you did.
Well done, Madam Chair. Well done. Thank you.
No, well done, Dr. Gordon. Okay, perfect. So let's move forward
you.
to the, perfect. So let's move forward
you.
to the next item. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Westerman is going to come up and walk us through the options for 80HSW4. But before he comes up, I'm sure everybody saw the dates when the numbers on our table. I wanted to say that we are using all the numbers from the data from last spring, which is what we showed in March and then brought back again. So all the data that you see is what we had from the spring. Thank you. Dr. Westerman.
Hi, good evening. First, let me orient you through the map. The blue lines represent the 2020-21 high school boundary lines. The main roads are I-4 down to the county line, the John Young Parkway, the Turnpike. Okay. We can't point them out. Okay. And Apopka Vineland Road, starting over on the left-hand side, starting in the middle, there's Dr. Phillips High School and Freedom High School. Oh, there we go. Thank you, Stacy. It's okay, we're there. The next slide shows the development layer, where yellow is planned, peach is platted, and pink is underway. The new building is shown here in the middle of all the new development. For option 1, the colored shaded areas represent the proposed lines for each of the involved schools. Dr. Phillips is in blue, Freedom High School is in salmon, and the new 80H SW4 school is in yellow. Next to each school, we have the text box with the information included in the name of the school, the permanent program capacity, the number of students currently residing in the shaded area, and the number of students projected for the 2021-2022 school year. Additionally, we add the development layer again to highlight the areas planned or under construction. We have a table for each option to give you an overview of the demographic information. The first column has the school name with the permanent program capacity. The second column presents the school enrollment on November 15th, 2019, with the percentages for race as white, black, and other, and ethnicity as non-Hispanic and Hispanic. The next column is a snapshot of the current data. The next column contains proposed number of students residing in the zone with the race and ethnicity information and the projected number for the proposed zones. Then the next 3 columns list the current and proposed percentage of students who qualify for free and reduced meals, who are in the Exceptional Student Education Program, and who are in the English Language Learners Program. I'll give you a moment to review. All right, let's move on to option 2. The difference between option 1 and option 2 is the area being moved from Freedom High School to the new 80H SW4 school, adding more students to the new school from Freedom High School, as well as a little part up by Dr. Phillips on the northwest corner of the yellow zone. This is the development layer again, showing the planned and current construction in these zones. It's the same setting for the tables. I'll give everyone some time to review the numbers here. Okay, this next slide is a side-by-side comparison of the 2 options to show the differences in the areas from Freedom High School and Dr. Phillips to the new 80H SW4. Finally, this table shows the numbers for the 2 options and their projections for the enrollment for the 2021-22 school year. Next slide. As for the community response, we've had 353 in support of option 1 and 39 oppose option 1, and the vice versa opposite, and for option 2 of 39 in support for it with 353 oppose. And our superintendent staff recommendation was for option 1, or option 1. Dr. Jenkins.
Members of the board, ready to answer any questions, hear your discussion before we hear a consensus.
Thank you. And Ms. Enval, let me check again. This is or isn't the one where we had comments?
This is the one that we have 2
Okay.
callers. Yes.
All right, so let's hear from members of the public that are on the line that have comments, and then we'll open it up to board discussion. Could we hear from our first caller?
Our first caller is going to be Janice Hendrickson.
Ms. Henderson?
Hi.
Hi, if you can give your
Hi.
name and address for
Good
the record.
afternoon.
Good afternoon. If you can start with your name and
Certainly.
address.
Sure. Janice Hendrickson, 13133 Paloma Drive, Orlando, Florida, 32837.
Okay, and you have 3 minutes for your
And I
comments.
have
Thank you.
also- Okay, and Actually, I was told because I'm speaking on a group that I would have 5 minutes, but I'm speaking on behalf of the group.
Yes.
Okay, yes, I've just been informed that that's correct. You're speaking on behalf of the group. Thank you. You have 5 minutes.
Okay, great, thank you. And we had also provided some slides for today, but I'll go ahead and get started. So again,
We
thank you
have
so
your
much,
slides up,
for
Ms. Henderson.
allowing me- Perfect. Thank you for allowing me to speak today, presenting to you on behalf of 8 families and 14 children directly and indirectly over 271 parents and families who signed a petition outlining why option 1 is the clear choice for the proposed school rezone 80HSW4. I am a current resident of Hunters Creek, where I have resided since 1999. Presently, both my children attend Freedom High School as zoned. I have a senior class of 2021 and a freshman class of 2024. Both of my children are active in the Pride of the Patriots marching band, and my husband and I are active volunteers for various needs throughout Freedom High School. As you'll see in the slides, as I present to you today, I will focus on 3 main elements as to why we feel that option 1 is the best choice for the children residing in this community. Coming down to accessibility and distance, the community support, and emotional well-being. The first reason why option 1 is the best option are the factors of accessibility and distance. Within the vistas of Hunters Creek and several surrounding developments of Hunters Creek, we are a one-way in and one-way out development in the very back of Hunters Creek. Even with all residents of high school age attending Freedom, on high traffic days, it can take approximately 20 minutes to get to Freedom, over half of which is spent getting out of our own development. We fear that if option 2 is chosen, this will simply aggravate the current traffic pattern. In addition, our children may be subjected to riding a school bus on toll roads, putting them at risk to high speeds, heavy traffic, and still a longer ride to school simply because they may have to be picked up earlier than they are currently picked up for their transport to Freedom. Or our children may be on a school bus that takes direct roads with no tolls, at which point it would take no less than 35 minutes or more to drive, especially during morning rush hours. This is pointed out in the large square in the slide. The next few slides just give you a visual on the amount of developments that are impacted, meaning that they are in the back, that they have to drive all the way forward to John Young Parkway. And that includes 6 developments outside of what is called the vistas of Hunters Creek and an additional 7 inside of the vistas. So that's 13 unique subdivisions of homes, 80 to 100 homes per development or more, where the only access point is driving approximately 3 miles out to John Young Parkway and then going up and around. So our Hunters Creek community, I want to switch to community support. Our community and Freedom High School have shared and supported many activities throughout the years at Relay for Life and Christmas parades. These events bring the community together and everyone has a part, whether participating, volunteering, or simply sitting back to watch and enjoy. It is a great experience when the adults and young teens get to work together. We are a tight community here at Hunters Creek. As a community, we have leaned on one another for support, whether it be to pick up or drop off our kids at school or from sport, or even when kids are sick. The kind of support that we show throughout our community truly is exemplary and follows that it does take a village to raise a child. As many families have endured the effects of COVID-19 pandemic, we certainly are no exception. Many families have lost their jobs, homes, and some even had a hard time putting food on their tables. Others have had to adjust their children to virtual learning, and some battle with isolation and social issues. Some children haven't seen their friends in months, or at the very least, not in the same fashion they were used to. These issues are tough on adults, but they are much harder on our children. Given these extreme and unprecedented circumstances that we're currently living in, it is so important that we provide our children with a sense of stability rather than subject them to even more change and uproot them from a school they feel safe in and have grown to love, with a community of Hunters Creek residents that have united over the course of the past 20 years here in Hunters Creek. So after having heard our concerns over the rezone proposal, we remain hopeful that you will consider our thoughts as you move forward in making this difficult decision. We hope the presentation helps you come to that same conclusion.
Ms. Henderson?
That the children of Hunters Creek.
Thank you, Ms.
Yes.
Henderson. Your time is up. I know it's hard to hear the timer, but it sounds like you timed your presentation just about spot on. Thank you for that presentation. It was very helpful.
I did. I was
Thank you.
coming to the very end. I do want to thank everyone for your time and consideration.
Okay.
So again, thank you,
Okay,
Madam
if you
Chair,
go
and
on
all
any
board
longer,
members.
you're going to get me in trouble for not enforcing the rule, Ms. Henderson, so
okay.
thank you. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. We have one other member of the public.
Our next and last caller is Kendra Quagliana.
Welcome. I'm not going to try to mispronounce your name, but thank you for calling. If you can give your name and address for the record, and then following that, if you can give your comments, and generally those are 3-minute comments unless you're speaking for a group. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. My name is Kendra Quagliana. I live in Paces Mill in Hunters Creek, which is at 5175 Hook Hollow Circle. So we're down there in that lower corner, lower left corner, that represents the difference between option 1 and option 2. I thank the previous caller for doing such a good job of describing the benefits of option 1. I would like to speak out against option 2, 3 things specifically. Number 1, it divides up Hunters Creek, which, as the previous caller described, is quite a unique and proud community, and so we don't want to see that happen. The students that, if you went with option 2, the students over in that lower left corner would not be attending high school with students that they attended elementary and middle school with, so it would be a totally unfamiliar population. And lastly, and most importantly, there is no access from the west to Hunters Creek. So this is going to increase the drive and the distance from their homes for these children. They have to go either all the way up John Young past essentially Freedom to the new school, or they have to go south into another county in order to then come around and access their school. So this is really going to make quite a difference in the amount of time that they're on buses and the amount of time that it takes to get to school and the amount of time that we have to travel as a whole. So those are my 3 points. I am for option 1, and I was speaking against option 2.
Thank you. Completely understand. Very familiar with Hunters Creek, and there's pretty much an island compared to the other sites, so I understand where you're coming from. Let's open it up to board comments. We have Vice Chair Gould queued up. Then we have Member Cobert. If there's any other board members that wish to comment, please cue Ms. Enval. Let's start with the Vice Chair.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to both Mrs. Henderson, and I'm also not going to attempt our second caller's last name because I don't want to disrespect a great last name. But those comments are well thought out, and as the Chair alluded to, it would be a very difficult situation to go around that. Before I make my recommendation, I did want to have the input of Member Cobert. We share this area. Freedom is in the heart of Member Cobert's district. The new school is in the heart of mine, and we happen to have kids in some of her schools and some of my schools under the way the districts are currently drawn in Hunters Creek. So before I make my recommendation, I'd like to have Member Cobert's input.
Thank you, Member Gould. Did you see that presentation? Now you understand why Hunters Creek is such an amazing community to live, work, and play. It actually comes up on the top 10 best places to live in the United States on a regular basis, yes. And it is, it's a very special and tight-knit community. And I am never in favor of dividing a neighborhood or a community when we zone schools. That's what makes our schools the heart of the community. So Ms. Henderson, Ms. Quagliano, you did a wonderful, wonderful job. We hear you, and I concur with keeping that community together and with option one. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm checking. We don't have any other board members who have queued in. I also fully agree with option one. I think both of you have, there's nothing I can add that you haven't already said about the reasons, nor could I add anything to the presentation and the comments from the speakers. So without any objections from board members, we have consensus and direction for the staff to move forward with option one for advertisement for our meeting on October 13th.
Yes, ma'am.
Wonderful, thank you. All right, let's move on to our next
one.
rezoning.
Okay, before we get to our next two, Site 113 HW4 and Site 65 MW4. A little history with this as we're bringing it forward. We had scheduled for 113 to open in August of 2021. We have a overcrowding issue at Bridgewater Middle School. Student enrollment was asked to research if there was a possibility of opening 65 up early to provide some relief for Bridgewater prior to the next school building opening in 2022, which is 132 MW4. When we started the process, our main goal, the goal was to make sure that the options we provided for 113 could be long-term solutions for the Windermere High School area. We did not look at 65 and any options for that until after we had developed options for 113. When we thought we had 4 good options to bring forward, we then went and put our thinking caps on and designed options for 65, again, long-term options that we could bring forward. At that point, we looked at, would the numbers work to have both 113 and 65 housed in the high school side of 113 for 2 years? So what we're going to present to you is 113 and the options that we brought forward for that. And then we'll bring you 65, and at that point we'll also show you the numbers if you decide that that's the way we continue, what we'd look at numbers in the building. But I wanted all of our listeners to understand our process for this as we went forward. At this time, I'll turn it over to Ms. Propshe.
Good evening. Let me first orient you through the map. The blue lines represent 2021 high school boundary lines, and Stacy will point to State Road 429. On the west is the Lake County line. On the south is the Osceola County line. The hashed area is Disney property. You can see Windermere High School, and north of Windermere High School is West Orange High School. On the east side, there is Olympia and Dr. Phillips High School. The new school 113 HW4 is located by Seidel Road. On the next slide, you can see the development in the area. We have 4 options for rezoning Windermere High School. Let's look at option 1. The colored shaded areas represent proposed lines for each of the schools. The purple area is proposed Windermere High School, and the yellow area is proposed the new school 113 HW4. Next to each school, you have a text box with information, including the name of the school, permanent program capacity, number of students currently residing in the shaded area, and number of students projected for 21-22 school year. Next slide is showing the development distribution in each of the zones. And as you can see on option 1, most of the development is in 113 HW4 zone. We also have for each option a table to give you an overview of the demographic information. The layout of each table is the same as previously described by Stacy and Andy. I will give you a moment to review the numbers. And let's move to option 2. In option 2, in green color, West Orange High School is added to the rezoning. Then we have the development view. And the table. And I will give you again time to look at the numbers. Now option 3. Option 3, as option 1, only involves Windermere High School. North area of Windermere High School is being moved to the new school. Then we have the development layer and the table. And option 4. Option 4 as option 2 involves West Orange High School. The difference between option 2 and 4 is south part that stays in Windermere High School. Then we have the development layer and the last table. And you can see all 4 options side by side. And the options overview with the numbers, with students currently residing, students projected for 2021, and students projected for 2025. As of September 15th, we received for option 1, 132 families supporting, 113 families opposing. For option 2, 91 families supporting, 154 families opposing. Option 3, 57 families supporting, 188 families opposing. Option 4, 85 families supporting and 160 families opposing. Superintendent staff recommendation is option 2. This concludes my presentation. Dr. Jenkins?
Just for the sake of continuity, I want to go ahead and include the next portion too, so our board members and members of the public can hear the whole, see the whole picture before we entertain discussion.
Absolutely. So we move to 65 MW4. And the green lines are the middle school lines for the 2021 school year. And Stacy is outlining Bridgewater. Well, it was outlining Bridgewater. And you can see the zone. On the far west is the Lake County line. On the south is the Osceola County line. And our next slide will show the development. And our next slide shows our first option. The area in purple would be the proposed zone for Bridgewater Middle School. The area in yellow is the proposed zone for 65 MW4. The text boxes give you a snapshot of the school with the school number, the capacity, the current number of students residing within that area as of this past spring, and our proposed, not our proposed, our projection for 21-22. So we show our development, but to help see the difference between the two zones, we put a dark black line in because the yellows were blending. So the black line just represents the boundary zone for the two options, or the two schools. And we have our table. And as you look, you can see for 65, and last spring, we had 207 children living in that yellow area at that point for middle school. But we anticipate by August, we could have 500 students there. And Bridgewater, there's 810 currently in that purple area. And in the fall, with the rezoning, it would keep us to about 1,800. Option 2 takes us a little further to the east as we pick up areas off of Sidell Road. And you can see the development again. And as you see, most of the heavy development, the forthcoming development, is sitting within the 65 zone, whichever option we look at. And then we have our table for 65. And in the area in yellow, as of last spring, there was about 450 middle school students there. And it was anticipated that we'd end up around 800 if we come this coming August. And then, ooh, that was interesting. Okay, and our dividing line so that you could see the growth for 2. Next. And this is the option 3, the numbers. Again, we went further north and picked up some additional students. And at this point, it was 664 students residing in that area. And come August, it could be 1,000 students in the yellow area. Bridgewater would be down to 1,300. If you look at the 3 together, you can see the progression as we've worked up. And you can see our numbers, the projections over the next few years for 21 and then 23. At this point, before we go further, the idea is, if this is accepted and taken forward, that with 65, they would be housed at 113 for the 21-22 school year, the 22-23 school year, and then their new building would open up in August of 2023. So that's why we put the 2020, I can't speak, the 2023 numbers on there so you could see what they would have at that time. So as we look at all 3 options, not considering whether they would fit in with 113, taking that off the table, for the zone for 65, and then for us to proceed and have the new school 132 coming with Bridgewater, we believe that option 1 is our best bet, as it will allow us to set that zone, and hopefully we will not touch those children as we move into the rezoning for 132. So instead of moving some children twice, we're looking at moving them one time as a group. And if this is proposals accepted, then we'd have them at 113, and then as a large group, they would move on over to their brand new building. But they would not be rezoned from Bridgewater to 132 to 65, or to 65 to 132. So we believe option one is the best option for us for the long run. Okay. Now, let's look at the combination.
Okay. Let me stop for just a second. Vice
Sure.
Chair Gould, did you have a question or a comment?
While you're here,
Yes, ma'am.
I think it's important to understand the complexion of Bridgewater currently.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Currently not in COVID. But as we, beat this disease and we come back into a full face-to-face mode, could you please share approximately how many portables are currently on that site? And if you don't have that right now, I'm sure somebody can get it pretty quick.
I want to say 90, but I could be mistaken.
That's about right. At last I heard was like 80-something, and I think we had to drop a couple more over the summer with the anticipated. So this is the growth that we're dealing with, and COVID has not slowed down the residential home sales. As I was in Massachusetts recently, we are seeing home sales in my hometown in the Berkshires of mid-size homes going in 3 days, and people are not relocating there. The people from the cities are coming and relocating there, and they are moving south. So, and they are bringing their kids with them. This is a complex problem, and there is no absolutely perfect solution. I will hold the rest of my comments for after we finish the presentation, but I thought it was important to understand we have a full-size middle school and 90 portables on top of that, which is another full-size middle school.
Yes. So as we continued to look to see if it was a possibility to have 65 and 113 share the same building, what we have for you is 3 tables. The table on your left looks at option one for the middle school and pairs it with each of the options for the high schools. So as you're looking through, you can see 65, and then for 2021, you see the 500 students, and then for 113, their number, and then you see the combined number of students that could be sharing that campus. We did that for 2021, 2022, and then you would see where both schools would be in 2023. The middle table is taking 65 option 2, and again pairing it with each of the options from the high school. And the table on the right takes 65 option 3 and pairs it with each of the ones for the high school. I'm going to give you some time to review it. There's a lot of data in a very compact form here. So our recommendation has been that for 113, option 2, and for 65, option 1. Both of these would provide relief for the schools that we're looking to help and provide us with some long-term, I want to call it stability, but that's probably not a good word for the Horizon West area. But we're trying, to get a little, so that we're not moving kids too often. And this is our community responses for 65. Option 1, 20 and 27, 2 is 26, 21, and 3, 16, 31. So again, for 65, we recommend, the superintendent staff recommends option 1. Dr. Jenkins?
Members of the board, happy to hear your discussion. I would add, it's not the first time we've used this creative solution. That happened a few years ago with Lake Nona. High school opened under capacity and the middle school was housed there as well. While it presents some challenges, it is a reasonable creative solution to the overcrowding at Bridgewater.
Thank you, Dr. Jenkins. Okay, queued up is Vice Chair Gould, whose district this is in.
So, having been struggling with Bridgewater since my term just about began, and we cannot build middle schools fast enough to relieve it, even though we just opened a middle school, the Horizon West Middle School. It's not just about the two schools on one campus. It's about the experience of the children, and I know there's some consternation from some families about having high schoolers and middle schoolers on the same campus. But we have not only had the instance of the Lake Nona, but we have also had the instance of middle schools and elementary schools blended together, and K-8s. And there was consternation over those things as well, because that oldest child and that youngest child have such a gap. But it becomes about the management and the culture that is set when those two schools work together. The second thing is there are advantages for the students, and they're great advantages. An overcrowded school allows for some programming that we might not be able to have otherwise, because we're trying to get enough extracurricular and enough variety to fill our students' spirits. But it does limit if you're interested in sports. It does limit if you're interested in performing arts or music or lunch at lunchtime. And it was already early when we have a right-sized school. So balancing all of those things, as well as the safety and security reviews that we've gone through over the last several years because of on-site catastrophes like shooters and things like that. I really feel very strongly that we need to pursue this time. I had made a similar suggestion in the old 9th grade center of West Orange. At that time, that building had not yet been renovated, and some of the parents could not see the vision of that renovated building, which is quite nice now, by the way. The portables building combination is quite nice. But for traffic management on campus and off, for the advantages of our students who might not be the superstar that goes on to play football or soccer or run track in college but wants that experience, this is the time to get that experience. I think it can work beautifully. This is a very close-knit community already. They already know each other very well, whether they have older students or younger students. I think that we can work through this. This is one of those things I can't win either way, so I am following my conscience and my experience in this. So that's about the middle school. I'm working my way backwards now to the high school. The high school numbers don't match neatly, and that's because Windermere High is an anomaly. Windermere High and Olympia, I have the two anomalies in the community, both have constraints because of where they are located. Windermere High has an agreement with the county, which the chair will remember, that we came to that there would not be an excess of portables. We need to protect that in that settlement. We did get an exception because the growth rate rebounded so fast, and we could not get that money in the pipeline or the construction done fast enough, quite frankly. It wasn't just about the money, it was also about the resources, and we advanced the high school as fast as we could. But living up to that bargain, we need to make sure we're not maximizing that school to the point where we're going to have portables where they should not be when we need portables there. We want to get those kids back into a school in their villages, their neighborhood, as quickly as we possibly can with the minimum amount of disruption, which is tough in Horizon West, because depending on where you live in those village formats, you could be rezoned a couple of times just because you're on that pivot point of where there is a boundary. The natural boundaries don't work perfectly either because of the lakes, and there were 2 schools. I should get double the time. Because of the lakes and all of the way that those communities have been divided with their town centers and all of that. So that said, I am in support of the superintendent's recommendations, and I'm also planning, just so that the community realizes this, because of COVID, it became difficult to do this towards the end of the year when we had it originally planned, having a conversation between some of the parent leaders from the middle school and those that went through it at Lake Nona, both the leadership and parents at Lake Nona, so that they can ask questions, see how that experience went, and get a better understanding of how those 2 cohorts can live on the same campus together. So we are working on some dates for that right now, so that we can foster those conversations and make sure all the questions are answered that need to be answered prior to this coming back to the board for a vote, in case there is some outlier that we just haven't thought of. Thank you to my colleagues for your consideration in this unique situation.
Well, thank you, Vice Chair. Thank you for your leadership in a tough situation. And I think your recommendation, one, I support moving that forward, but I also like the idea of connecting those parents with the other parents so that they can understand and have a chance to talk to somebody who's lived through that to understand it can work. But also your observation also about the community and how tight-knit it is, and that the relationships are there where they often aren't to make this a successful environment. So anyway, so I think good, tough decision to make, but I think absolutely the right direction. I don't see any other board members that have queued up, so unless I'll give it another minute or two, if a board member wants to queue in with any dissenting thoughts about which rezoning plan on both of these to move forward to advertising and then to move forward to a public hearing. Again, no final decisions get made at this time, but we do need to give direction to staff in terms of what to advertise. This time, the direction is the direction given by the member representing the district. I don't see any other member. Oh, Dr. Gordon.
Madam Chair.
Please, Dr. Gordon.
I'm sorry, I couldn't find Dr. Bridget Williams' number to queue up.
No problem. Jump in.
I wanted to ask my colleague and Vice Chair, Madam Pam Gould, through you, are they going to advertise all 3, or are they going to just go with the superintendent's recommendation for the advertising of it for the community?
Vice Chair?
I believe just the recommendation for both.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, that's fine. Because I've been following, with the Bridgewater, I've been to several of the community meetings, and we've heard the public loud and clear on it.
Yes.
So that's all I needed. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Okay.
Madam Vice Chair.
Absolutely. Thank you. And I'm sorry, Ms. Enval?
I just wanted to say, with respect to Vice Chair Gould's comment about the special exception for the portables, that expires August 31st of 2021. So that's why option 4 for the high school was not the best choice. And then also, just for record purposes, we do not have any public comment on either the third one, 113 or 65, either callers or in person.
Thank you so much. And thank you for the reminder. That had slipped my mind that we were able to get that special exception for a temporary period of time. So it is incumbent upon us to resolve this problem, besides the fact that it's most important for us to resolve the problem for our students. So, all right, without any further direction from the board, we're going to go with the direction of the vice chair who represents this district. And Dr. Jenkins, anything further to come before the board at this time? Okay. Then we will adjourn in just a minute. Let me just remind the board that we'll be back here next week on the 22nd. And hopefully for another, this was a nice, successful meeting. We look forward to seeing everybody then. Vice Chair, thank you for your reminder and your words about 9/11. This was certainly a unique year for us, but I can't imagine that any of us will ever forget 9/11, and I can't imagine that any of us will ever forget Pulse, and it was a unique year for Pulse as well. So it's important that we always remember those who have sacrificed so much for our country. Veterans Day, Labor Day, all of those holidays are important to us. So God bless everybody. We'll see everybody back here next week, and the meeting is now adjourned.
All right, very good. Thank you, everybody. Have a good evening.
You too.
Goodbye, everyone.